St. Francis. When it came to the hagiography of the saints, her favorite, of course, was Francis of Assisi. At first it was assumed that, due to her interest, she might be ripe for conversion, but that was not so. She daydreamed that she too could speak to the animals. Often she wandered from the school grounds to study in the graveyard. There, under her favorite oak, the gabardine pleats of her uniform carefully arranged beneath her, she daydreamed that a pair of fully delicate and tufted titmice, their sweet heads with alert black eyes intent upon her every word, were perched upon her outstretched hands, listening as she spoke. The raucous screams of a scolding jay brought her quickly back. Oh yes, the bread she had spirited out of the dining hall was promised for it in the pocket of her blazer. "Coming right up," she announced, scrambling to her feet to scatter crumbs upon the ground. Then she pulled her French grammar out. Language came easy to her now, though it wasn't long before her thoughts turned from declensions. The exquisite warmth and smells of what is called Indian summer brought to Anna's mind the time as a child that she spent on the farm with Alex and Mima during one of her mother's frequent declines. How clearly she recalled certain things, the huge spikes of brightly colored gladiolas. Well, they would of course tower over her, for she was only 6 then. How strange it seemed to her now that she did not speak then, for it seems that she had a gift for languages she barely has to study. The teaching order here is from Germany, undoubtedly just one of the reasons why her father chose this school. She had discovered that many of the older nuns sequestered away in the convent were from there, and she found that she could carry on a rudimentary conversation with them, much to their delight. When Anna first did speak aloud, it was in French, the language in which her mother sang lullabies to her. At first there was not much concern. They just thought she was a late developer, then shy, then strange diets, practices, finally accusations and avoidances. As her care was parceled out to various experts, she drifted into a world of solitude. Bored with the ease of her studies, her mind drifted off. There were some wild grapes entwined along the wrought iron fence close to her, and the droning of bees eager to gather in the last of the harvest before the first frost set in cast Anna adrift in the past, clearly recalling how wonderful the freedom was that she experienced on the Sutherlands' little farm. The feel of the air on her skin, bare feet in the soft dirt, loose hair on her cheeks, stuffing her mouth with gooseberries warm on the bush, sneaking bites from tomatoes on their vines. Who knew their juices tasted like that? And a dog to run free at her heels. Loosely supervised, but nonetheless she felt cared for, free to roam, unaware that adult eyes were indeed keeping guard over her. She loved not having to keep clean every minute, too. One day, when her father came, she was hidden back under a Spanish shawl draped over the piano, and heard them talking about her. "She's not deaf and dumb," Mima was telling her father. "She can hear and understand," Alex interjected. "Watch." Mima called her out, knowing exactly where she was. Her father watched, a bit dumbfounded. "Child, bring me a spoon." She sprang off and returned with the item. "Well, she read your lips." "From under the piano?" At that, Mima turned her back to the child and said, "And a fork to go with it." A fork was set down neatly then beside it. Alex chimed in, "Doc, she can read too." "Surely not. You have somehow managed to teach her?" "No, she taught herself. She's a bright one, she is. Watch." Then he rose and brought her one of the little readers they had around, handing it to Anna, who pushed it away. Alex caught her wrist gently and pulled her to him. "Please, child, show us." At that she pulled and ran, only to return with a torn piece of butcher paper that they used to wrap the chickens they sold. She handed it to Alex. Stunned, he handed it to her father. In neat but slanting pencil letters it said, "I can write, too." If she expected him to be overwhelmed, it didn't happen then. After a subdued dinner time, her father asked for a stroll, informed her that her mother's health had yet to improve, and that she would be staying on here for a bit more. He drew on his meerschaum pipe thoughtfully, then broached the subject. Why didn't you tell us? Well, you didn't ask. Why don't you talk with us? I don't want to. Why not? I don't need to. For heaven's sake, child, he exploded. I talk to my brothers and sisters. At that he stopped in his tracks, pipe stem in hand. But you have none. I do too. Child, are you mad? His elation at her newfound powers of speech, his only child, quickly evaporated at this glimmer of possible derangement, surely a taint from his wife's side. Stop this foolishness now. Now! Going so far as to shake her. Who are these friends? The mother, of course, he thought, imaginary, all children had those, and then feared the worst. Alex had no hired hands on the little poultry farm, and Alex was impeccable in his morals, or he would never have trusted his daughter, his only child, to their care. Seeing the distress on his face, she took his large hand, came tugging at his jacket, pulling him. She then led him on a grand tour of her world, and introduced him to her friends, first to the little gray clapboard chicken house to meet Biddy, the bantam hen, the lovely Rhode Island Reds, where she went daily with her little wicket basket to gather an egg for her breakfast. Biddy allowed it, she told her father. Laid one fresh just for her. It almost broke his heart to see the trust in the child's eyes as she demonstrated how careful one had to be reaching for under a sitting hen. It was too hot in the day to find the big indigo snake, no matter how she probed the hole, she told him as she led him out to the shoulder-high corn. Don't worry, I know all about those with wedge-shaped heads. Pointing to the big white clouds amassing on the horizon, telling him to keep an eye on them as they were soon to change shape and color, she began to twirl her corn silk hair, a lovely nimbus, as she sang in French. So like her mother, he thought. Pausing. Don't forget to feel the wind, Papa. That's my friend, too, just like the rain is Uncle Alex's, you know, for the corn. So it's Uncle now, he thought. He felt his heart. Oh, she said as she reached for his hand. Listen, hear them? They are my bestest friends, the crows. Don't you just love them? They love to ride the wind. You just can't help but love them for it. Father, they will never, 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 she sang, twirling, pluck my eyes out, you know. Looking down on the little face suffused with pleasure, he couldn't help it either. Once her father learned of her affinity for animals, he bought her pets. Their big house was now never without them. A red-headed parrot from the Amazon that delighted it now by croaking out a fairly intelligible schnapps and was banned to the pantry for its messy seed-cracking activity. As soon as she saw how her father understood and tolerated her love for animal friends, she slowly moved her wild animal menagerie into the household. Blue, a severely pecked blue jay driven from its nest, came to the carriage house. Then Silver, the baby raccoon, was moved right up into the rose garden. After her mother's death, and because most of the household staff were let go, Anna had to find homes for her pets. The one she managed to keep was a male canary of her mother's, Willie, a sad memento, whose high trilling song grew less and less frequent and was finally silenced after she had been packed off to the boarding school. Often the only sound now heard in the empty house was the clink of Dr. Hoffman refilling his Waterford glass yet again with fine scotch.